Hello and welcome back to Talking Planning. Today you join me in South Bank for another city review. This is Talking Planning. With the weather being as awful as it is today, you'd expect me to just go home and keep dry. But instead I decided to stick it out, get absolutely soaked and film a city review of South Bank. So here goes. At least I've got coffee. Being as bad as it is today, my first intention would be to get out of here. And unfortunately, normally I could at that stop for the ferry, South Bank 3, right behind me. But today I can't because as of midnight last night, the 25th, I think, let me check. So midnight of the 24th, that ferry service was suspended as they have now found structural damage to the ferries. So I'm gonna have to keep walking in this rain, which I'm not necessarily enthused about. As you can see, it really is bucketing down with rain out there. So let's walk through Epicurious, which is a food garden that's open to the general public and has lots of fruits, vegetables and herbs that can be picked. While you're here, you'll also see this statue of Confucius, donated by the People's Republic of China to the Queensland government in 2009. Just around here, you'll get your first glimpses of grass that's under maintenance and the South Bank Arbour, but also probably my favourite bit of South Bank, and that is the little lakes up the back where the moorhens love to live. So let's go and quickly walk through those now. Question is, are there moorhens around today? We will find out. I haven't seen any yet. This is probably one of the more beautiful bits of South Bank. Oh, we've got water on the lens. Wonderful. Can you spot the moorhen or not? I assume these funny looking funnels behind me, like that, are for children to yell into and hear the sound of their own voice rather than their parents. There's a second one there. Perfect. Yeah, so it's probably for communicating like you used to have when you had two cans and a string. Nice. I think one of the main reasons that you'd come to South Bank is this, to walk through this beautiful arbour, and it's such an iconic part of this city. And I think a lot of people criticise Brisbane for being sometimes a wee bit boring, but it is these little things like that, like this beautiful arbour with all the bougainvillea, which, by the way, don't put your finger on because you'll stab yourself with it. It's really got really sharp points. But it is things like these little arbours that do make Brisbane quite a pleasant and livable city. And typically, see those little motifs down there? That's cool. But typically, Brisbane's a bit warmer than this and a lot less rainy, so fault's on me. I kind of probably didn't paint Brisbane in the best light today, because usually it isn't this bloody wet, but we do actually need the rain, so it's probably not the worst thing in the world to see. From the classic and timeless arbour Brisbane residents know and love, we make our way around to Flow State, which is an area that no one knows about, and to be honest, despite it being a art installation, I'd just call it a cage which makes weird noises. It doesn't do it for me, to be honest. So instead, let's go and have a look at this sheep, and this sheep's posterior, as well as the markets that would usually be here but aren't. Now normally behind me there'll be a really large market and it will be nice and busy on a Saturday like today. However, you know, with the combination of coronavirus and today being a honestly pretty darn miserable weather day, there are no markets today, so it's significantly quieter than usual at South Bank.
As you should know full well on this channel, you know that I like pointing out the weird and wonderful little things in a city. And I've just spotted one of them over there. And it's a Brisbane bubbler. Of course, we're going to go and do the reasonable thing, and that is do a quick little bubbler review while we're here. Because when in Brisbane, do as the Brisbaneites do, I suppose. Actually, if you know what Demon in Brisbane is, come and tell me in the comments below. I'd appreciate it. Let's see if this actually works. It does. Flow's a bit disappointing, but more importantly, let's see how it tastes. Flavor's good, but there's just not enough arc there, so I'd be worried if, you know, a good old Queensland favourite, the ibis, decides it wants to use that facility, that you're getting precariously close to what that ibis has to offer. At least you can actually see the city now. You couldn't before. Let's get back and have a look. That city cat's just going to be heading over right now to QT Gardens Point, which is a place I know all too well, having graduated from that uni on that campus just 6 months ago. And of course, Brisbane favourites, coffee vans, and this one is quite special. Love the fact that they've got an old combi as a coffee van. However, consequence is, I bet it's extremely overpriced and, if I'm honest, a bit crap. Look at these amazing leaves. I've never seen a leaf this thick. Does anyone else know what it is? If you can tell me what this leaf is, this one, let me know in the comments below. I don't think I've ever seen a leaf quite this thick. If you know more about horticulture than I do, leave a comment below telling me what this is. I should point out, if it was 1893 or 1974 right now, first of all, none of that skyline basically would be here. But also, I'd need a snorkel. And if I didn't have a snorkel, well, you wouldn't see this video. Let me put it to you that way. Brisbane is well known for having a few floods. So, South Bank here, which has really only looked roughly like this for about 30 years, in fact a bit less actually, once was a port, was actually Brisbane's main shipping hub and freight distribution, which has now moved way upstream that way. Yeah, with Brisbane's propensity to flood, this is often underwater in very severe weather events like the 1893 and 1974 floods, and also the 2011 floods, which I do remember quite well as a kid because I lived in a suburb which got hit reasonably badly, but I was very fortunate that where I lived didn't get affected. Oh, and there's another heritage board here too. Maritime Heritage of Brisbane. Yeah, this actually goes back to what I was talking about earlier, how this indeed used to be the main port. Oh, have a look at this, the Heritage Trail of Maritime. I never knew about this, so we're finding out more on a journey together, which is what I intended to actually do on this channel, which is fabulous. So, if you can read that, which you should be able to, there's a few places to go and check out, so why not make that a little day trip or something interesting to do as a family or sort of solo explore. Brisbane's ubiquitous graffiti is certainly still around. And the great thing about South Bank is there's lots of handy signage telling you where to find things. I should quickly point out one thing, and that is, whilst the CityFerry is now no longer operating, the City Cats are. So that does raise one question. Is it definitely that there are mechanical and structural issues with those ferries? Or is there a lack of demand to operate a free service because of the reduced revenue of COVID-19? Let me know your thoughts. Look, I do think there are structural issues, given the fact those ferries are the best part of 35 years old in many cases, but what are your thoughts? Let me know.
Very fortunate to say that I needn't have worried too much, as the first of the city ferries have already returned to service after their inspections. From the 17th of August, there are city ferries now operating between Teneriffe and Bulimba, and hopefully in due course the rest of them will return to service structurally sound. If you look in the distance, you'll see the Nepalese pagoda, a beautiful little structure that predates South Bank. The pagoda came to Brisbane as part of World Expo 88, which is said to be the event that put Brisbane on the map and turned it from a big country town into a real city. Many people had very fond memories of Expo, and I certainly wasn't alive at the time, but I'd love to go back in time and experience what it really was like for this city during the height of Expo.
I'm going to point out a little known fact about this little bit of cycleway along that you'll see behind me now. It's actually called the Clem Jones Promenade after a former Lord Mayor of Brisbane, and there's a bit of controversy in that because Lord Mayor Clem Jones was remembered for a mix of different political and infrastructure decisions in Brisbane. On the one hand, many things got a lot better in terms of the average Brisbaneite now had sewage, whereas before his entry into office, most people in Brisbane didn't have sewage. However, it's also the same Lord Mayor that signed a large deal with Firestone Tyres, which involved getting rid of trams and instead replacing them with several hundred diesel buses, and thus the death of Brisbane's tram network. So, bit of a mixed bag. I'll let you make up your mind on his legacy, but they obviously decided it was important enough to name many pieces of infrastructure in this city about him, not only this bikeway, but including one of Brisbane's largest road tunnels. Come on. Nope, you're going to stay there. Alright.
This end of South Bank, you will find the Wheel of Brisbane, which is a perhaps unceremonious rip-off of the London Eye. You'll find QPAC, that is the Queensland Performing Arts Centre. You'll find the Convention Centre, and across from the Cultural Centre, you'll also find the Queensland Museum and the Art Gallery, Goma. You'll also find the State Library, and this precinct of South Bank is much quieter. That being said, South Bank is ever changing, and as part of the new developments around Queen's Wharf on the northern side of the river, expect to see some changes around South Bank as well. One of the changes is a pedestrian bridge linking South Bank and the northern parts of the river, to go along with the existing bridges, the Goodwill and the Kurilpa Bridge.
Brisbane's e-scooters are back. What are your thoughts? I don't know, I like them. I haven't really used them much though, but I think the e-scooter is a good way to get around if you just need to balance that distance between somewhere that's a little too far to walk and a little bit too close to try and jump on public transport. But I think with a bit of tweaking, they will be a good thing for Brisbane. Alright, so given that things... Crow, stop disturbing me. Alright, so given that things are, let's face it, a bit wet and miserable, I think it's time to pop off and grab some lunch. So with that, I want to say thanks for joining me on Talking Planning. See you again soon.
On Talking Planning, we will now be releasing 2 videos a week for you to enjoy. On Tuesdays, come and join me for the classic transport reviews, and on Saturday, keep your eye out for a general, more talkback feel show with a little bit more depth and investigation, covering off on some really interesting and diverse topics. Come and join me on Talking Planning for more.